Hello, I'm Ray with another hour of ranting and rambling. No, with another podcast episode that hopefully you'll find interesting. This one is all about days out. Days out in the 1950s, 1960s. I think most people's days out then were picnics. Picnic out in the woods, in the countryside, or to the beach. A picnic down to the beach. That's what people did. There weren't any theme parks back then. It's probably my age, but to be honest, I can't stand theme parks. They're just noisy, full of people. I mean, I love kids. I love to see kids having fun. Don't get me wrong. All running around, screaming and shouting. That's great. But there are far too many, you get a theme park and there are just far too many people crammed into it. I suppose, with all due respect to the theme park owners, they want as many people in there as possible because they're in the business of making money. They're not trying to keep people happy. They're making money. That's the thing with any business these days. People moan about banks. Oh, banks should do this, the bank should do that. They're closing branches, which I think is dreadful. But of course, they're trying to make money. I love these adverts where they say, we're here to help you, whether it be a bank or whatever. We're here to help and support you. No, you're not. You're here. You're here to make money. You're here to make money out of us. Stupid it is the way some of these adverts, honestly. Adverts are getting worse, aren't they? They really are getting worse. What, have you seen that latest one, or rather heard, where people all, I think they're singing. I think they're meant to be singing, but they all end up screaming. I just have to turn the thing off. And there's that other one where they're all going, woo, then someone else joins in, woo, woo, and they're all, I forget what it's advertising. So that's a bad advert. If you can't remember what it's advertising, well, the advert hasn't worked, has it? All I can remember in those two adverts is the first one, they're all screaming, and in the second one, they're all going, woo. I don't know. Anyway, theme parks. How are you? Lockdown is nearly over, isn't it? It was, I don't know where, I don't know. I can't keep up with it. I keep saying that. I can't keep up with it. We went out for breakfast the other day to Shoreham Airport, which was nice. And we had to wear a mask, going into the place. And we had to sit at a table far away from other people's tables and all that. But it was really nice just to go out. It was a lovely breakfast. And we sat there. There weren't any planes flying, but we sat there looking out across the airport. There weren't any planes flying. I'll tell you why. The place opens at 7 and we were there at sort of 7:30. We're early birds we are. So we're over there very, very early. And there's hardly anyone around. Just as we were leaving, a few more people were coming in. But that was really nice. And we went up to Highdown Gardens. I think I mentioned that on last Wednesday's midweek message, didn't I? That was nice up there. But the thing is, with anywhere like that, Highdown Gardens, the woods, wherever you go, remember when I was in Somerset, I did a couple of recordings. In the background, you can hear traffic. And at Highdown Gardens, I'm going to play you a clip in a minute, and you'll hear the traffic. Now, it's it must be quarter of a mile away from the main road, something like that. Right up the hill, quarter of a mile away from the main road, which is the A259. You can look that up on the map. Highdown Gardens. No, it's a lovely place. But standing in there in the woods, listening to the birds, there's the constant noise of traffic in the background. You can't hear car engines as such, or people changing gear and revving up. It's just that, you probably know what I mean. I'll play it in a minute. That constant drone of traffic in the background all the time. And I'm becoming more and more aware of this. Wherever I go, I mean, the beach is different. You got the main road just at the back of the beach. So fair enough, you're going to hear traffic. But if you walk deeper and deeper into the woods, you would expect not to hear traffic, but the sound carries. It's incredible how far the sound actually carries. Now, my mission is to find somewhere in the woods somewhere where I can't hear traffic. And I will do it. I mean, there's got to be places, hasn't there? If you look on the map of the UK, look in the middle of a forest and the nearest road is miles away. Surely you can't, can you? You can't hear the traffic there, surely. You've heard of light pollution, no doubt, where all the light from the towns is all going up, shining on the sky. So people trying to look at planets and stars and stuff, they can't because of light pollution. Well, I think they talk about sound pollution. They're not talking about raves and discos and stuff. It's things like the traffic, isn't it? That constant drone of traffic wherever you are. So yes, that's going to be my mission. I shall go rambling and roaming with my portable recorder to see what I can hear, to see if I can not hear traffic just for a change. That would be lovely. Going back to days out. Now, Sundays always seemed to be picnic day for us when I was a kid. My mum would pack up the hamper, you know, the wicker hamper, the wicker basket with the lid. You open the lid, and in the lid, with leather straps, there are the plates, and they were Bakelite originally. I think they went on to plastic. And in the hamper itself, you've got knives and forks and cups and saucers, all that stuff, everything for a picnic. And you could get kind of 4-place or 6-place settings. Now, we were a family of 6. Now, I don't remember what was in the hamper, how many plates there were, but if there weren't enough, obviously Mum would chuck in a couple of extra ones. So you'd find a spot in the country or down on the beach, preferably the country, lay the blanket out. You know, we'd find a spot, lay the blanket out on the ground, making sure there's nothing horrible there from cows or sheep or whatever's in the field, preferably not a bull in the field. Lay the blanket down and set out all the bits and pieces, and we'd have a picnic. And of course, in the early days, which was lovely, no one took a radio with them. There were radios going back to the 40s. There were portable radios. They were valve, tube radios, as they call them in America. Valve radios with big batteries in, 2 big batteries, HT and LT batteries. And they worked out in the middle of the field. You know, obviously you didn't have to plug them in. And that was the first kind of portable type battery. Before that, people on picnics used to take a gramophone, a wind-up gramophone. You know, you see in old films, don't you, and old photographs. They're having a picnic, they've got the car parked there, and there's an old wind-up gramophone. Now, I must admit, I didn't like it when transistor radios came in. That was, late 50s, early 60s? I mean, I had a transistor radio, it was brilliant, but I didn't take it on a picnic. I don't want, when you're sitting out in the countryside, you don't want to be listening to some DJ or whatever playing music on the radio. You can do that at home, you can do that anywhere. Surely when you're in the countryside, you want to hear the lovely sounds of the countryside. Anyway, later on, people started taking transistor radios. You could hear it. You're thinking, oh, it's a nice spot here. Hang on, what's that? I can hear music. Oh, I have to move. I can hear music. You don't want to hear that. You know, it's some idiot having a picnic the other end of the field or something. That gets you on the beach, doesn't it? It gets me. You find a spot on the beach. You think, oh, this will do. Look, we'll sit here, spread your blanket out, got your picnic hamper. And then you see a family, you know, the husband and wife, couple of kids. They're wandering down the stones. You hear them behind you, crunch, crunch. They get onto the sand. The tide's out. Seagulls are screaming. Lovely. They come and sit right next to you. They put their blanket like a few feet away from yours. You know, I feel like saying to them, look, there's a whole beach here. You've got the entire beach, acres of sand, and you've got to sit like 2 feet away from me. You know, why don't you clear off? That's the word I'm looking for. Why do people do that? They do, don't they? You get a park with bench seats all round. You think, I'll sit on this one. There's no one here. I'll sit here. What does someone do? They walk past all the empty benches and sit right next to you. With my friends and family, there's this sort of running joke that I don't like people. Is it Anton Rogers in A Christmas Carol, Scrooge and that, where he sings, what is it? I hate people, I hate people. That's my song, according to the family and friends of mine. Happy days. Of course, back in those happy days, parking wasn't a problem, traffic wasn't a problem, fewer cars and fewer people, of course. We could drive out anywhere, more or less anywhere into the country. You could park more or less anywhere, safely, I mean, you know, not blocking a farmer's gate as the idiots do these days. Or they'll stop at a farmer's gate and chuck out old mattresses and all their rubbish and then drive off and leave it there. Dreadful. I think for that sort of thing, what do they call it, fly tipping, there should be like a £50,000 fine. Mind you, that wouldn't stop people, would it? They'd still do it. But parking wasn't a problem. You could park anywhere on a country lane. There were little lay-bys, or just pull into the woods if there's a clear spot. It was brilliant. And then just wander into the woods or across a field. The first picnic I ever remember, I was less than 5 years old because we lived in Sompting. Look on the map. We lived in Sompting, just near Lancing, in a very, very small bungalow. It was like I think it was a 2-bedroom bungalow, more like a half-bedroom bungalow with half a lounge and a quarter of a kitchen. It was that small. I won't mention the name of the road case. I mustn't. People living there might think, oh, that's nice to describe my bungalow. No, a lot of them now I've noticed they've had rooms put in the loft and extensions because they were ultra tiny bungalows. I mean, it was great. I was happy there. We moved away from there when I was 5. But down the road from there was a huge field and some trees. Yes, it's all housing estates now. No, actually, it's not. No, this little bit where we went, that field, I believe, is still there. And we went to my sister. There were 4 of us in the family then. Mum and Dad sat in the corner of the field with a blanket and the picnic hamper, and we ran off the other side of the field. Now, my sister's 2 years younger than me, so I reckon she was 3 and I was 5. Yeah, we moved away when I was 5, so that would be about right. And I remember that picnic. It was fantastic. We could run around in the field. My dad was waving, and we thought he was meaning come back. But he wasn't. He was waving to go further away. He was telling us to clear off, go further away. Because we ran back and said, what do you want? And he said, no, I was waving for you to go. But I think he was trying to get rid of us. Hoping we'd get lost. Oh, good, that's the end of the kids. Damn nuisance they are. No, seriously, that's my first ever picnic. And I enjoyed many, many hundreds of picnics after that. As I said earlier, these days out aren't so much. Well, they might take a packed lunch. A family might take a packed lunch. It's not a picnic as I knew it when I was a child, but it's a lot of theme parks. So it costs a fortune to get in, doesn't it? If you've got 2, or say you've got 4 children, there's 6 of you, absolute fortune to get in for the day. I suppose once you're in, then all the rides and stuff are free, but I don't know, it's the noise and all the palaver of it, the whole thing. It's just talk about drone of the traffic, drone of the noise of the noise of the rides and the people. I don't know. It's just not my thing at all. Now, this is nice. Our grandchildren, right, when they have a day out, they very often go to the woods. Their mum and dad take them to the woods, and they do, what is it, where you go from tree to tree? I can't remember what it's called. You know what I mean. You go across rope ladders and sort of rope bridges and stuff like that, down a zip wire. It's fantastic because it's all out in the countryside and they are surrounded by the birds and wildlife and things. It's all in the woods and it's a lot of physical exercise, climbing up these sort of rope net type things and across rope bridges and all this sort of stuff, down the zip wire. It's all fantastic fun and it's in the woods. I love all that. Is it Go Ape? Go Ape, isn't it, one of the things? I mean, you don't have to go and spend loads of money doing Go Ape. You can just go to the woods. They often take their bikes. Now, there's 6 of them all together, and they take their bikes, mum, dad, the 4 kids, and they'll cycle off into the woods, and they go sort of trekking and that through the woods. It really is fantastic, and that is a great day out that costs, well, basically next to nothing, or nothing. One day out, I remember as a child, I must have been 11 or 12, we took a train. Now, behind Shoreham used to be Shoreham Cement Works, which is actually, I think, is it Upper Beeding? No, it's not Upper Beeding, is it? It's Beeding. Anyway, look on the map. Behind Shoreham, there used to be Shoreham Cement Works, big tall chimney, and that's where they made cement. That's why it was called Shoreham Cement Works, probably. And they ran a steam engine pulling a couple of carriages. I've never known the difference. Is it on a train? Is it the whole thing? Is it a coach or a carriage? And are the compartments coaches or carriages? I don't know. That's all by the way. It doesn't matter, does it? So this steam engine pulling a couple of coaches ran from Shoreham up to the cement works because there was a branch line and they did these kind of trips. And that was fantastic. I remember that. I can't remember what happened at the end of the line. It went up to the cement. I think it went further. It must have gone up to Beeding. But anyway, we took this steam-pulled train up there. Now, that was a good day out. That was a Sunday. As I said before, most of these things were on a Sunday. Obviously, during the week, everyone was at school and at work. And Saturdays seem to be a busy day at home. There's stuff going on at home, gardening and car repair, and car maintenance. If you had a car, everyone did plugs, points and stuff like that, muck about with the car, top up the water, check the oil. So Sunday was the real day off for the whole family. That's why all the trips out were on a Sunday. But that was lovely. I remember going on that train up there, the old steam engine chugging away up front. That was a brilliant day out. And I'm pretty sure that we took a bit of a picnic with us because, well, wherever you went on a day out, you took a picnic. You didn't go to, we went somewhere, I can't remember, near Haywards Heath, Linfield, somewhere up there. You go for a walk, for a lovely country walk, and at the halfway around the walk, there's this kind of a hot dog van, well, not hot dog, whatever they're doing, coffee and donuts and all. You don't want all that when you go for a country walk. No wonder people are fat. And I can say that because I'm not politically, I can't even say that. I'm not politically correct. I mean, my stomach's fat. Now I've lost half a stone. Yes, how about that? 7 pounds in weight I've lost in a couple of weeks. So that's not bad going. And I'll tell you what, I feel much better for it. And so do my shirts. My shirt buttons were straining. And, people would joke that button's about to fly off. And I thought, oh dear, that's embarrassing. But I've lost half a stone. So I'm down a notch on my belt for my trousers because I made extra holes because I was getting rather large. But now I'm down a couple of extra holes on the belt. So that's good. But picnics were healthy. We didn't have chocolate bars and crisps and donuts and cake. We had proper, you had sandwiches, perhaps a little bit of cake or something like that, but not masses of chocolate and crisps like people do these days. Well, not everyone, of course, not everyone does. We quite often went to the beach. I don't like the beach. I've said all this before. I think one of the reasons I didn't like the beach, you had to be careful because there was tar everywhere. Black lumps of bitumen, tar. What the oil tankers did out in the English Channel, they wash out their oil tanks with seawater. I mean, it's illegal now, but they used to back in the 50s. They used to wash out their tanks. And of course, all the oil, because it was heavy, was it crude oil or whatever it is, and it would all wash up onto the beach and kind of almost solidify. It was lumps of tar. And you get it on your clothes, you couldn't get it off. It was all over the place. Of course, on the birds as well, seagulls, they get it on them and they die. But wherever you went on the beach, you couldn't just put your blanket down in any old spot. You had to check everywhere, look all around for these huge lumps of tar all over the place. I mean, that was awful. Plus, I remember going in the water as a child. There were sewer outlets all along the beach. And yeah, I'm not going to say much more than that, but you know what I saw in the water. You're paddling around, having a swim about, and next to you think, I think I'll just move over here a bit. I think that's what put me off. It's enough to put anyone off. Plus, I couldn't swim. I still can't swim. I've just never liked the water. I'm not afraid of the water at all. Well, having said that, I wouldn't want to be chucked in at the deep end of a swimming pool because I can't swim. But funnily enough, I can float. Isn't that weird? On my back, I can float and I can move my arms and my legs a bit and kind of propel myself. I can't do it on my front because I just sink. But if I just lay on my back, I can float for hours. It's fine. It's not a problem. And just wave my arms a bit and move around. So I suppose if I did fall in the deep end of the swimming pool, no, I'd probably panic, wouldn't I? I don't know. If I could just relax on my back and float, I'd be fine. Before I forget, I'll just play you that little audio clip of when I was up at Highdown Gardens. I'm at Highdown Gardens in Worthing, looking at a baby rabbit. Can you believe it? A tiny baby rabbit just sitting on the path in front of me. I'm not going to do much of a recording here because there's someone hammering. Can you hear the traffic? That's the main road down the bottom of the hill. It's such a shame. Wherever I go in the woods, you can hear traffic. It really is such a shame. It's beautiful. They've spent just under £1 million here on Highdown Gardens, just outside Worthing. Just under £1 million, and it's wonderful. It really is beautiful. It's been pouring with rain. In fact, it's spitting with rain now. But not to worry. Just a shame about that constant traffic noise in the background. Birds are singing. All the trees and bushes are all dripping because it's been raining quite hard. Absolutely wonderful here. We were going to come up here about a week ago, but we had to book a time, as you do these days. And it was lashing with rain that day. It just lashed with rain all day, so we cancelled that one. And we've come up here today. There are some fantastic plants here. This belonged to Lord and Lady Stern. And when they passed away, they left it to the local council. It's free of charge. There's no money to get in. And it's all run by the local council. It's been closed, well, because of COVID, but it was closed anyway for a year while they were doing all the work. The plants here are wonderful. The fragrances, absolutely wonderful. You hear a wood pigeon. I mean, this is paradise for wildlife. Rabbits. I bet there are a few foxes around here as well. Wonderful. I actually met Lord Frederick Stern? Lord Stern. I met him when I was about 11 or 12 years old. I was with a friend and we were up high down hill, poking about up there as kids do. And we found this sort of gap in a hedge. We went through there, through all the bushes, and we found ourselves in this amazing garden. And we thought it was like heaven, paradise, Garden of Eden. And we wandered round and we couldn't believe it. The pond and the rest of it, absolutely amazing flowers. Anyway, when I got home, I told my parents, I said, there's an amazing Garden of Eden up there at High Down. Of course, my dad was saying, no, there's not. There's nothing up High Down. Just a clump of trees at the top and an underground reservoir. So I said, well, come and have a look. Anyway, my mum and dad came up there with me. I led them through the gap in the bushes into this Garden of Eden. I think they were quite stunned. Anyway, we were wandering along, admiring my dad was admiring all the exotic plants, and coming towards us was a nurse pushing a wheelchair with this old boy in it. And, I'm thinking, oh dear, who's this? Anyway, this nurse said, what are you doing here? And my dad explained. He said, oh, sorry, my son found a way in through the bushes and we didn't believe him, so we've come to have a look. And this is it, what we found, this amazing garden. And she said, well, this is Lord Stern, the owner of the garden. Oops. And he was very nice, actually. He said, welcome to my garden. You're quite welcome to have a look round, words to this effect. He said, but might be nice if you contribute something towards the upkeep, say £0.50 a crown. So my dad gave him £0.50 a crown, 2 and 6pence. And he let us wander round the garden. Oh, he did say don't come back, which I suppose was fair enough. I mean, it was his private garden. And no doubt because he asked where we got in and we told him, no doubt he got his gardener or gardeners in those days to block up the entrance where we got in, probably fence it up or something like that. But, we only met him briefly and he seemed a very nice man. Apparently he was I read something about him in the 1920s. He was a millionaire and he travelled the world collecting plants for his garden. There are trees there as well. There are trees which are kind of exotic from abroad somewhere. Have a look on the internet if you're interested. High Down Gardens, Worthing. His house, a massive house, I've been in there. It was turned into a nightclub called Stern's. If you're local to me, you've probably heard of it. And I used to go there. I mean, it was great. I really enjoyed the nightclub. It was up the road from where I lived. And I used to think, though, when I was in there, what would he think? This was his house. And it's now a nightclub and there's people drinking and dancing. There's loud music, all sorts going on. This was his house. And I used to picture him in the garden in his wheelchair. And I used to think, I don't know, probably turning in his grave. It's awful, really. I went upstairs at the house. You weren't allowed to, but I went upstairs. Huge wooden staircase. I had to look round, and fantastic place. I think now it's a restaurant. No doubt you heard that drone of the traffic noise from the garden there. Of course, that wouldn't have happened in his day. I mean, when I was up there, 12 years old or whatever, I wasn't aware of traffic, but there wasn't any. I wouldn't have been aware anyway. That's what I'm trying to say. Not the sort of thing I was listening for. Of course, there's also all the traffic fumes. You can hear all the traffic noise, but there's all the exhaust fumes. Where's all that going? Probably drifting up the hill into the garden. So you can't escape. You can't escape cars, can you? If I look out of my window here, the road's full of cars. Wherever you go, down the seafront, anywhere, full of cars. Car parks are full up. Can't go into town anywhere. I don't know. Not much point in moaning and ranting and raving about cars. Because nothing's going to change. Well, it is. It's going to get worse. Another great day out that I really enjoyed was Lancing Carriage Works. Look that up on the internet. Carriage as in trains. Where the British Rail, where they did all the repair work and rebuilding of stuff, was just over at Lancing, between where I am and Shoreham Airport, basically. Because in those days there were railway sidings. There were sidings in Worthing here, in Hove, all the sidings for the coal, where all the coal trains dumped off coal and whatever they did. Massive piles of coal beside the track. I remember seeing all that. Of course, that's gone. But Lancing Carriage Works, that was where they had a load of railway sidings and they repaired steam engines as well as other things. They had steam engines there. And they fitted, I remember seeing, I don't know how old I was again, 11 or 12. I remember watching them fit the tyres onto the train wheels. They call them tyres. I mean, immediately you think of a rubber tyre, but these are the steel tyres that they put on. And what they did, I stood there watching them with other people all around, of course, put this huge steel ring in the fire. And when it's all glowing red, they take it out, stick it on the train wheel and hammer it on. And then pour water all over it to cool it. So the metal tyre would shrink onto the wheel. So what they did, instead of replacing the whole axle assembly with the wheels, they just replaced the metal tyres. And that's how they did it. And we also went up onto the footplate of a steam engine, blew the whistle, stuff like that, looked at the fire, had a walk round. A massive place it was. I don't know what's on the land now. Probably a housing estate. Oh, good grief. Crikey. I don't know. But the entrance to it was on the seafront road, again, the A259. And you go up this huge drive, well, big road really. And there it was, sprawled out across, I don't know, a load of land, Lancing Carriage Works. There were engine sheds at West Worthing Station. They've gone. There was a whole place, I don't know what it was, just by Worthing Central Station, round the corner from me. Loads of sidings. Of course, all the transport back in the early days was by rail, wasn't it? You didn't send things by road, whereas now it's all by road. Of course, Dr. Beeching shut everything down. All the branch lines, closed them all, didn't he? From the programmes I've seen on the telly, some people say he was wrong to do that. Others say he was right. He was doing it from the financial point of view. They were running like a train, a couple of trains a day out to a village and back. And there's sort of 4 passengers a week, maybe 5 passengers a week. And they're running, 1 or 2 trains a day. So obviously they've got the track, they've got the trains themselves, the rolling stock, the staff, the station, the coal for the steam engine. They've got the whole thing to pay for a few passengers a week. So I suppose from the financial point of view, well, close the branch line. If people aren't going to use it, close it, which I suppose was right then. But of course now they're opening some, aren't they? I have heard they're opening a lot of the old branch lines up again. It's a shame because what the branch lines did, not necessarily to a very small village, but they could take in supplies. They could use, freight trains and stuff. There were freight trains everywhere. I remember at night, especially when we lived in a house that backed onto the railway, there were trains going by with, big tankers full of oil or petrol or whatever from Southampton. There was the stone train, we used to call it. Loads of trucks full of rocks. I don't know where they were going, but there was always this train full of rocks. Loads of wagons. Loads of freight back in those days. I think there's the odd freight train now, but nothing like there used to be. It's a shame because now the roads, of course, are blocked up with lorries. What is the answer? I don't know. You can't, this is the trouble, you can't go back. You can't put all the branch lines back again and get rid of all the lorries. The system is now so entrenched the way it is, you can't suddenly change it all. And of course, hindsight's no good, is it? It's about as much use as a chocolate teapot. Hindsight, looking back, oh, well, we should have done this, we should have done that, is no good. Had we known in the 50s what things would be like now in 2021, then we might have thought, right, okay, well, let's keep this, let's keep that. We can do away with that. It would have been totally different. But of course, you can't do that. Having said that, I do think someone should have had a little bit of foresight and thought, well, hang on a minute, just before we go knocking all these houses down, building on floodplains, for example, in the 60s and 70s, before we do all that, let's just have a little look, in our mind's eye to the future. What's going to happen? What's going to happen if we get rid of all the freight from the railways and put lorries on the roads? How's that going to, isn't that an awful word? Impact on people. I hate that. It's not impact on people, it's effect. How is it going to affect people, isn't it? Affect with an A, not an E. Well, no, I won't go off into an English lesson. I've said before, haven't I, about people that say some think and nothing. It's not think, some think. I heard Priti Patel on the TV this morning, the Home Secretary. She said something, and she said it more than once. Something. It's something. I couldn't believe it. Honestly, my ghast is flabbered. What hope is there for youngsters when they're trying to learn English and stuff at school, the young kiddies, if people are going around saying something and nothing? I don't know. Illiteracy. I better not swear. No, I don't know. I don't know where it's come from. I know people personally that say it, and I have pointed it out, sort of in a laughing way, not to be rude, but I don't know. You don't get anywhere. They still say something and nothing. I lied to you earlier, and I lied on last Wednesday's midweek message. I was talking about Lord and Lady Stern from Highdown Gardens. It's actually Sir Stern and Lady Stern, Sir Frederick Stern. I thought, I don't know how it works. I thought that she's Lady Stern, so I thought he was Lord Stern. If a lord marries someone, doesn't she automatically become lady? Perhaps she was lady in her own right in the first place. I don't know. Anyway, he is Sir Frederick Stern, not Lord Stern. So let's put that right. My mission to find somewhere in the country where there's no drone of traffic, I accomplished yesterday. I went up to, we've got relations that live somewhere near Arundel, back of Arundel, on a farm. And we went up there. I didn't take my recorder with me. Hooray, you're saying. Thank goodness for that. We haven't got to put up with more of that bird tweeting stuff and noises in the woods. No, seriously, the farm, it's miles from a main road, and I listened, and there was nothing in the way of droning traffic. The only thing, there was a railway line not too far away. You could see the line down in the valley from where we were. And I saw a few trains go by, but that wasn't a problem. It's not like the constant drone of traffic. But the birds in their garden on the farm, they've made a very nice garden. They've got pheasants. There were 4 pheasants roaming around. There was a woodpecker. He was feeding on one of the feeders. They've got loads of feeders everywhere. Squirrels were all attacking the food as well. There were also a couple of rats. And as they were saying, you can't, the rats know where there's food, so they'll come along and eat it. There's not much you can do. You can't put out rat poison or anything. There are just rats everywhere, not only in towns, but out in the country, of course. They're all over the place. But that didn't matter. I mean, they looked all right. They weren't interfering with the other birds or anything, or the squirrels. So it was lovely. We saw, what was it? Great tits, chaffinch, I think. I don't know all of them, but he was pointing them all out to us as we walked round the garden. Talking of birds, for the last, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I've been aware every evening of a bird singing his heart out, absolutely loud, singing at the top of his voice every evening. And I've not known what it is. Now, on my phone, I've got an app, where a bird song app or something. What you do is you record the bird, and then it gives you, say, 4 or 5 birds that it could be, maybe up to half a dozen. And the top one, it says this is the most likely, and then the second most likely. And the top one, it said, was a robin. Now, I don't know why I didn't believe it. I thought, well, that's rubbish. I don't know why. I've never heard a robin sing. You know, they normally sit on a fork handle in the garden or something, don't they? On Christmas cards, you see them in the snow. But I've never actually heard one sing. It's in this fir tree, this huge pine tree at the back of our place. And I could never see it. I've looked and I've looked, I couldn't see it. And the other evening I was out there, and right at the very top of the tree, on a branch, the topmost branch sticking out, there's this little bird. Now, I couldn't see, it was too high up. So I got the binoculars, and it's a robin. And here he is singing. He was out there again last night up until, well, gone 10 o'clock it was. He was still singing his head off out there. So he's obviously a happy robin. Now, I've had an email from Frank. Hello, Frank. Frank says one of the days out he remembers was the circus. Well, an evening out, he reckons, was the circus. He said he only went a few times. He didn't like it. Well, I tell you what, Frank, I didn't like the circus. I went once. I'm pretty sure it was only once. I didn't like it at all. I didn't think the clowns were funny. I know I'm a miserable old devil at the best of times, but I didn't think the clowns were funny. What was I, 12 years old, something like that? The place had an awful smell. I felt sorry for the elephants and the lions, tigers and whatever. The trapeze thing I thought was boring. And I remember saying, I don't want to go to the circus again. I just didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. And Frank's saying a similar thing here. In his email, he just didn't like it. Went a few times. He said, my parents dragged me to the circus. So no, that wasn't good at all. The fun fair, what I liked about the fun fair, do you remember they used to go around all the towns, didn't they, in the summer? They probably still do. We had one very near to where we lived. So what I would do is wander over there in the evening. And I'd look at all the rides and all the attractions going on. But what really attracted me, I wandered around the back of all the stalls, where the big lorries were parked with the generators, huge diesel generators on these lorries with big ammeters and voltmeters. Oh, wow, that was fantastic. I mean, again, I was only about, 12, 13, 14, I suppose. I think as I got to 14, 15, it wasn't so much the generators I was looking at, but the girls. Because, bear in mind, this was the 60s. And the fun fair was full of girls in miniskirts. Oh, here we go again, you're saying. Oh, that reminds me. Who was it? Steve. Steve messaged me, email. Hello, Steve, if you're listening. And he said, can we hear more about the girls? Well, I don't think so, Steve. No, you can't. It's dangerous. Verging on being arrested. I meant to have his email in front of me. I forget what it said exactly now, but something about you're always on about the girls. Can we hear what you did with them? That was one thing. Can we hear what you did with them? I looked at them, Steve. That was all. I was more interested in diesel generators, believe me. Well, perhaps not. There was something that was good fun for a lot of kids, not so much a day out, I suppose a night out, sleeping in the garden in a tent. Do you remember doing that? Pitch a tent in the garden and, you'd go out there about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night and you'd have a torch and, your mum's perhaps giving you some sandwiches. So you've got a feast in the tent and you'd sleep out there, a couple of sleeping bags, you and your brother or sister or whatever. That was great fun in the summer, sleeping outside. I remember doing that, and a few times about 10 o'clock you go indoors. Well, I've had enough of this, I'm going to bed indoors. But no, I did actually spend some whole nights outside in the garden, in the tent, in the back garden. That was great fun. Not so much a day out, as I say, but a sort of a night out. It was just something that we did in those days. I don't know do kids do that now? Have you got kids or grandchildren? Do they do that now? I don't know whether ours do. Actually, yes. Our grandkids, I remember a few years back, they had a load of people over for a sleepover, and they all had a huge tent in the garden because they got a big garden where they are, and they got a huge tent. Yeah, I remember that, and it was full of kids. I mean, I wasn't there, but I saw all the photos. It was great fun. Of course, days out very much depended, I suppose, on where you lived. For example, you live in the middle of London. I had cousins that lived right in the centre of London. I forget where exactly. But their days out, we went up and stayed with them now and then. And their days out were going round to the ice factory. and places like that. I remember they said, come and see the ice factory. And it was only down the road and round the corner. And there's this huge building, big front doors of the building were open, like big sliding doors. And there's massive blocks of ice. This was the 50s. They're making ice. I don't know who for. I suppose, I don't know, what, local fishmongers, hotels, whatever, pubs, bars. And I remember thinking, wow, an ice factory. I'd never heard of such a thing. Didn't know it existed. And they showed me all sorts of things, in London, which they did on their, not so much days out. They didn't have far to walk to a huge park. I forget which park it was, but aren't some of the London parks lovely? Some of them are absolutely huge. You'd think you're out in the woods somewhere, They've got lakes and trees and all sorts, absolutely fantastic places. Surrey, I love Surrey. I was born in Surrey. It's probably why I like it so much. But in Surrey, I've got a squeaky chair again. I'll have to sort that out, get some WD-40 on it. In Surrey, there's so much woodland about. There's, you probably know Box Hill, Leatherhead, all round there. There's so much woodland and parks, Surrey Hills, everywhere. There's parks in Surrey. In fact, my grandfather was head gardener or park keeper or whatever he was, up in Surrey or London somewhere. I know it must have been Surrey because that's where they lived, in Sutton. I remember going up there as a kid. That was great. I loved going up to visit them because in their road, just a few doors along from where they lived, was a bridge over the railway line. And you could look down there and watch the steam engines. But if you went a bit further, there was a big park and there were loads of conker trees. So, of course, at the right time of year, I'd come home with carrier bags full of conkers and I used to sell them at school. Well, why not? Entrepreneur, makes some money out of it. But the park was in the middle. It was like a triangular shaped park. It was a big park and it was made into a triangular shape by the railway lines. There were 3 lines and you could go wherever you went, whichever edge of the park you went to, you could look down and watch the engines, the steam engines and the trains. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, to me, going up there to Sutton to see my grandmother and grandfather, that was a fantastic day out. I loved going there, as I've said, but of course people up in that area and in London at the weekends, they used to like coming down to the coast because they weren't near the sea. They didn't have beaches and all that near them. All they had was the River Thames, and back in those days that was pretty dirty. So they used to all flock down to the coast here. Not all of them had cars, of course, so they come down on the train or the bus. There'd be coach loads of people coming down from London, which was great. I didn't mind that at all, mainly because I was up in the woods and never down the beach. I wonder whether days out, when you were a child, what type of days out they were. I wonder whether that moulded you at all. Was it the parks up in Surrey that I liked? Was that moulded me into what I am today? I love the countryside. I love the woods. And I don't like the beach at all. Was it that? Was it because we would visit my grandmother up there or we'd have picnics in the woods? I don't know. My cousins, I don't sort of have any contact with my cousins. I don't know where they are. 2 boys it was up in London. They were fantastic. They were good fun. And I liked their parents as well, aunt and uncle. They were brilliant. But I've kind of lost contact with them. I'll have to ask my mum what they're doing. They must be somewhere. I mean, they weren't that much older than me at the time. But I wonder whether living in London, spending their childhood growing up in London, in the middle of busy London, I wonder whether that's kind of moulded them at all, or made them what they are today. I don't know what they are today. I wonder what else moulds us into what we are. I was always interested in mechanical things, probably because my dad was a motor mechanic and he was always working on cars and that sort of thing. And I would not only watch, but help and learn. And a very close friend of the family was a TV engineer, and he looked after our telly for us. Whenever he came round, I'd watch him repair the telly and he'd tell me what he was doing. That's why I presume that's one of the reasons when I left school I became an apprentice TV engineer. Did a 5-year apprenticeship. There, the clock's striking. Look, good grief, it's midday. Stone the crows. I wonder where that came from, stone the crows. What else? Oh yeah, good grief. A friend of mine's always saying good grief. Another one's always saying crikey. You pick these things up, don't you? There used to be a load of things like that people said. These days they just swear, which is such a shame. It's not necessary, is it? Not necessary to use that sort of bad language all the time. I think things like crikey. One word that's never used anymore is R-U-D-Y, ruddy. Is it? Oh, no, double D. Ruddy. That's a ruddy colour, isn't it? A reddish colour. But people used to say, oh, the ruddy thing doesn't work. Ruddy, it's not a word used anymore, is it? I've just been thinking about Christmas. Well, no, I shouldn't mention the C word, should I? Christmas. Good grief. That's months away. We haven't had a proper summer yet. But Christmas was always something that you stayed at home for. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, you'd stay at home. The traditional Christmas dinner. It was all the traditional stuff, the crackers, the decorations, the silly hats, Morecambe and Wise on the telly. Do you remember that? But these days, people go out. I know several people that on Christmas Day, they go out and have a curry. I mean, I just don't understand that. It's not, I don't know, a curry on Christmas Day. It doesn't work for me. I just can't understand that. I like the traditional Christmas at home. Of course, if there's someone on their own, an aunt or an uncle, then you invite them over. Even a neighbour on their own, you invite them in for Christmas. That's great. But to go away, we went away once. Oh, dreadful. It was dreadful. We went to a place up near Horsham. I don't know, it wasn't good. Went with a daughter, son-in-law, kids, all that. It was a nice day, but the place we went to, I don't know, it wasn't no Christmas atmosphere. I think that's what it was. When we got there, we went in and someone just sort of looked up and said, yes. We said, well, Christmas dinner? Oh, yeah, if you go through there, wait in there. We went into this big room, no decorations, nothing like that at all. And there's only us there, no one else. We're just standing around thinking, well, is this the right place? What's going on? Eventually, a few more people turned up, looking as lost as we were. Then we were ushered through to this dining room place. Yeah, the food was okay, but I remember thinking, never again. I want to stay at home. I like being at home for Christmas Day. It's fantastic. Back in the 50s, early 60s, when I was a child, we didn't go out every weekend. We weren't always having picnics. A lot of the time, at the weekends, I did my own day out, which was normally over the woods, over the farm. There were several farms around, and go and annoy the farmer. Actually, it didn't annoy him. He liked. There was one farmer in particular. He loved seeing us kids. We'd go over there, and he'd say, "Oh, hello, you lot. What are you back again? What you up to?" And he'd show us farm machinery. He'd tell us about the farm. It was interesting. He didn't look upon us as a nuisance or anything. I remember once we were walking away and there were some ducks around and I saw this duck lay an egg. I thought, oh, look at that. It's a big turquoise sort of egg. So I picked it up and I thought, I wonder whether I should take it home, give it to my mum. Can you eat duck's eggs? And it was because it had just been laid, it was soft. You could kind of mould it. Anyway, I took it home and my mum did cook it. She cooked this egg and it was horrible. I didn't like it. But anyway, that was, that was learning on the farm. I suppose the farmer would have told me off if he'd seen me nick the egg, but that was all right. He was a great bloke. He used to tell us all sorts about the land and about wildlife and things. It was good. So you could make your own days out. You weren't, if your parents said, oh, we're not going out this weekend, it didn't mean to say you're just stuck at home on your own board. You make your own day out. You go around a friend's place or go over the woods with some mates. It was great fun. Of course, there was nothing on the television in the 50s anyway, in the daytime. In the 60s, there was on a Sunday. Was it Sunday? Was it Bonanza? Do you remember Bonanza, Ben Cartwright and Hoss? I think that was on a Sunday. There were one or two other programmes. But Bonanza, I used to like watching that. And of course, then other stuff came in, Stingray and Thunderbirds, all this American stuff. Which, it was great. But on a summer's day, even though there was things to watch on the telly like that, I never stayed in. I wouldn't sit there watching TV. The sun's out. The farm's just a walk away. The woods are just over the road. I wouldn't sit there watching Bonanza. But of course, as I'm always saying, things were very different then back in the 50s and 60s. There was one thing I liked doing. My grandparents, one set of grandparents lived in Lancing, and we go over to Shoreham Airport. Now, during the war, this was in the 50s, during the war there was a kind of some sort of rifle range there, Not sure what for. Well, obviously shooting rifles. They had brick walls where the targets were, presumably. And there was a lot of sand. And you could poke around in the sand and find these little brass shells. You know, the little shells that pop out of the rifle when you fire the thing. I used to collect loads of those. They're all about the same size. I've no idea what calibre they were. I don't know what rifles they were, but I remember my grandfather saying that it was a rifle range. And there were literally hundreds of these little brass shells, even though this was, well, a good, 10, 15 years after the Second World War. They were all still there. And I used to love going over there, poking about. I used to sell the shells at school, as well as conkers when I went to Sutton. I used to sell these little shells. People love them. I forget what I charged, but made some good money out of that. Of course, the airport was right next to the river, so you could watch the boats and things. It was just, again, it was a day out. You know, let's go to Shoreham Airport. Oh, fantastic. Get some shells, look at the boats on the river, watch the planes come in and out. Of course, that's where Poirot, you know Poirot, the detective, the Agatha Christie programme, some of that was filmed at Shoreham Airport. And it's quite funny seeing it, because it is a very much a sort of 40s, 50s type building, the kind of airport building itself. Or is it even 30s, possibly 20s, 30s? I don't know. I must find out. But it's funny seeing Poirot there, Hercule Poirot, or however you say it. Hercules, as some people call him, Hercules Poirot. Oh, it's great seeing him actually there, you know. And that's where we went, in fact, as I said, the other day for breakfast. There we are, happy childhood days back in the 50s and early 60s. There was also the Sompting Treacle Mines. Look that up on the internet, the Sompting Treacle Mines. If you're feeling a bit peckish, you just go over there and help yourself a spoonful of either clear or black treacle from the ground where it's oozing out of the treacle mines. Yeah, a lovely place to go and visit, the Sompting Treacle Mines. Goodness me, whatever next. Anyway, email me, Ray. No, not Ray. Well, yes, Ray's Rants, isn't it? Ray's Rants @protonmail.com. Almost forgot my own email address then. Ray's Rants, all one word, @protonmail.com. As I always say, it'd be great to hear from you, especially if you've been to the Sompting Treacle Mines. I must go over there and have a look. A chap did a video. I think he put it on YouTube. Look it up on YouTube. I might do that later. Sompting Treacle Mines. He made a video of the entrance to the mines and all that sort of thing. So that might be worth a look. I don't know. Whatever next. Oh, I've just remembered I've got my dentist appointment Saturday morning, 8:30. Of course, you'll be listening to this on Sunday, so it'll be all over by then. The torture, £1,300. Well, that's my wife and myself. Good grief, I'm in the wrong business. £1,300. I'm only going there for an hour, and I think she's got a couple of hours spread out or something, but it's rather a lot of money. I think I said to you, I said, can't you pull it out? Oh, he said, no, you don't want to do that. We'll fit a crown or something. I don't like the dentist, or there's probably dentists listening. I do. I mean, dentists are lovely. They're wonderful people. No, seriously, I'm not looking forward to that. So anyway, that's Saturday morning, 8:30. And then here we've got on Saturday, daughter's birthday. She's one of the daughters, is it? She's 31. So we're going to have a few people round for that in the garden, hopefully. Then we've got some sunshine. And then Sunday, what are we doing Sunday? I don't know. We seem to be completely booked up for things. Mind you, I do sneak in the odd day out, such as High Down Gardens, breakfast at Shoreham Airport, things like that. Well, it's not a day out, is it? It's just a little outing, which is rather nice. I've just redone all the bird feed in the back garden because, these fat balls and these slabs, they're made of, I don't know, animal fat or something, and it was going all over the border. So the border's covered in this sort of animal fat and grease, and nothing was growing there. Anything that was growing there died. All the leaves get covered in fat. Anyway, I put a huge tray, like a big plastic tray. You're not interested in that, are you? What am I going on about? Our frog is still out there in the pond. Our tortoise pops out when the sun's out. He can come in and out as he pleases. He's got his own, like a cat flap thing. He can just come in and out to an area that's his in the garden. So he's out at the moment because we've got sunshine. The frog's out, the rabbits are out, and I'm indoors, so I'm going to go outside. Now, take care. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're keeping healthy, exercising. That's what I should be doing. Go for a walk every now and then, especially when the sun's out. Have a walk around the roads. Don't breathe in too many car fumes. Of course, we're all going electric, aren't we? Electric cars. When's that? Is that all going to be within about 10 years? That's strange, isn't it? When you look at all the cars on the roads, all the petrol and diesel cars, in 10 years' time or whenever, they're all going to be scrapped. Presumably. Is that right? I don't know. Perhaps I've got that wrong. Anyway, Ray's Rants at protonmail.com. Take care, behave yourselves, and I shall see you on Wednesday for the midweek message. Bye-bye for now.